Joining me now for more on the sudden primary momentum swing, Mehdi Hasan, columnist, The Intercept, host of the Deconstructed podcast. I know, Mehdi, you have your own fears about Joe Biden's electability, but I want to talk about Sanders for a second. It's always struck me that the Sanders kind of theory is a kind of a interestingly self-testing hypothesis in this way. The idea is, look, we know we're running against the Democratic establishment. He says that and uses as terms. We know the only way we can do that is to bring new people in, right? To make the math work. And thus far, they have not been able to deliver on that promise of new turnout, particularly among younger voters. It's gone up a little, but in the places where we saw the biggest turnout boosts, like Virginia last night, that is where Sanders got crushed. What do you make of that?
I think you're spot on there, Chris. And the Sanders people I've spoken to today are disappointed, and they don't quite get it because there is this disconnect between the huge rallies and the enthusiasm both on the ground and online and elsewhere in terms of small dollar donors. And yet youth turnout, which was supposed to be what powered him to the nomination and then defeat Donald Trump. Yeah, as you said, on Tuesday, in states that he won and that he lost, youth turnout was actually lower than it was in 2016. So that is a problem for the Sanders campaign going forward. And they're going to have to fix that in Michigan, for example, next week, if they're going to pull off another victory in Michigan, as they did in 2016, because that is crucial to his strategy.
There's a new campaign ad they put out showing Bernie Sanders with Barack Obama praising him, which is an entire campaign genre. I mean,
Yes.
Biden and Bloomberg and all sorts of people run ads like this. And Ezra Klein made this point, which I think relates to that. He said, the work of the president requires convincing legislators in your party to support your agenda, sometimes at the cost of your political or policy ambitions. If Sanders and his team don't figure out how to do it, they could very well lose to Biden, and even if they win, they'll be unable to govern, meaning how to bring more people into the coalition. Do you think that's the main challenge for them right now?
It's not the main challenge, but it's definitely a challenge. I think when Jim Clyburn says that Bernie Sanders didn't even reach out to him before South Carolina to try and woo him, I think that's a problem. Having said that, on the other hand, let's be honest, nothing Bernie Sanders could have said would have got Amy Klobuchar to endorse him on a Monday evening or a people. So we've got to be realistic about the fact that as charming or as friendly as he can be, he fundamentally has an agenda and a policy platform that's a lot of Democrats are not going to sign up for. But yes, he should reach out more, at least at a grassroots level. And I'm glad to see him, today saying, Elizabeth Warren, take your time, very respectful, because he does need Elizabeth Warren right now, definitely going into Michigan and into the other states. I would just briefly, if you don't mind, respond to Barbara Boxer earlier about Joe Biden. This argument, this is not really about Bernie Sanders now. Biden's now the front runner.
Yes.
You can hate Bernie Sanders all you want. You can think he's a crazy communist who can't win in America. Fine. But the reality is, if you turn to Joe Biden and say, well, he's the safe candidate, I think you need to do a lot more soul searching, a lot more examining. This is a candidate who's not been vetted, really. In most of the debates, he's hidden in amongst the kind of 10, 12 candidates. He's not been asked about the bankruptcy bill. He's never really been probed about the Iraq war and his kind of turnaround on the Iraq war. And I just don't get why Democrats, as you pointed out to Barbara Boxer, think that you can just rerun the 2016 playbook and not think that Donald Trump will rerun his. I mean, they tried to run a pro-Iraq war, pro-Wall Street establishment Democrat with a history of dubious claims and dodgy dealings and dodgy comments about mass incarceration and super predators. Where did that end up? What's the old saying? Insanity is doing the same thing again and again and expecting different results.
Well, what do you say to people that say, look, that aside, which is both a sort of electability and I think an ideological critique sort of married together, I think it's fair to say. To me, the strongest, what do you think about the people like a Kristen Sinema, right? So she had to win a very tough race in Arizona, very tough race. She won that state sort of against the odds, right? She's coming out for Joe Biden today. You see Mark Kelly, who's trying to win in Arizona. You see frontline Democrats in swing districts. Do you think those folks who are in sort of those tough kind of swing areas, are they misunderstanding their own political interests and getting it wrong when they say, I prefer Biden at the top of the ticket than Sanders?
No, that's a great question. And I think you have to there's so many things in play. If you're talking about conservative Democrats in swing states where, the Doug Jones and you mentioned kind of Sinema and others, of course, there are very, very specific evaluations they have to do looking at their own backyard. And I get that. I'm not going to say there's some kind of sweeping broad, it's Bernie or Biden. I'm saying both candidates are flawed. As Barbara Boxer said, nobody's perfect. Yeah. My worry is this idea that Biden is the guy who's going to beat Trump because he's got some kind of moderate center ground appeal when that just didn't work in 2016. 2016. He's got so much baggage. And this idea that, oh, he's just got a stammer, that's why he gasped. He spent much of February falsely claiming that he got arrested in South Africa trying to go see Nelson Mandela. You're going to see attack ads like we've never seen before hitting Biden on all his record. And he may still win, but I'd like the Democrats to at least hold him to account for some of that stuff now. And there's one more debate in a couple of weeks. For Bernie, it's probably coming a little bit too late after Michigan. He needs that debate now because I actually think Biden would suffer hugely in a one-on-one debate where he can't hide behind other candidates. He flags in debates when there's 10 people on the stage. I don't think he can survive a 2-hour debate with Bernie one-on-one.
I do agree that a one-on-one debate would be really useful and illuminating for all concerned at this point in the campaign. Mehdi Hasan, thank you very much.
Thank you.